Now come to the open mic session. We will keep our rules more or less the same as we did for the mayor candidates. 30 seconds for the question, and then we'll apportion the 2 minutes for answers. If the questioner wants to, well, I guess we can't get 10 people to answer, but you might be able to appoint 1 or 2 or 3 people to answer. We'll play it by ear, but we'll try to keep the answering time to 2 minutes. So the first questioner is Peter Anderson.
Good evening. My question is to Eileen Wilkie. As noted on your campaign promotional page, you wrote an article in the Lions Bay Community News, March 21st of this year, titled, "Why Our Property Taxes Are So High." In the article, you note the loan for the Lions Bay UV, our water installation upgrade, was in 2008 was split to Brunswick at $600,000 and the rest of Lions Bay at $800,000. This was footnoted by Note 2, which is available on the LBCN website, along with 5 other points that you brought up. There were 5 footnotes altogether. I was curious about that, as when we amalgamated with Brunswick with Lions Bay in 1999 and gave Lions Bay the Magnesia Creek water rights, we paid, and you noted in your article, a separate $250,000, which we then gained from that an upgrade of our water piping, etc. After that, we were to share as one in the village with all of the capital expenditures and all of the operating costs. And I know some of the operating costs may have gone by the wayside, but the capital expenditures certainly have not. Okay, so my question is, based on that report, which seems to be missing, $600,000 would be allocated to 38 households, which means our cost would be $15,800 per house, whereas the rest of Lions Bay would be allocated $800,000 or $1,700,000 or $1,700 each. Does that seem reasonable to you?
Okay. Okay. I took those numbers. Okay. I took those numbers from the audited statements. If you look at the audited statement, in the notes in the back, it shows what we borrowed money for, and that was directly from our audit. I actually wasn't here when we borrowed the money, but it was allocated exactly the way I wrote it. So that would have to be a question to the auditor. It's been that way since we borrowed the money.
Thank you, candidate Wilkie. Sally Pollock.
Sally will pass.
Okay. And thank you, Doug, for your assistance, by the way. Jane Garland.
Well, it's me again, and I have the same questions for council as I did for the mayor. And that is, the trees are keeping growing bigger and bigger. And my question is, I would love it if you could just raise your hand, simple show of hand, if you would support some sort of good neighbor policy with regard to tree trimming to manage the view preservation in the village. A show of hands, please. Oh, people in the back, yeah, you can, yes, just so we'll know if there's any support from the community. Okay,
Do we have to have a yes or no? Can we, excuse me, is it possible to comment on the question?
Did you want somebody to go?
If you want to.
Okay, we have 2 minutes.
Is it appropriate?
Everybody who wants to talk.
I'd like to say that trees have to be maintained and trees have to be removed, and trees have to be controlled. Okay, we live in a forest, trees have to be taken out, trees have to be trimmed, and I'm all for that. Otherwise it takes over, we'll be right back in the forest again.
Thank you, Candidate Mosley. Sorry, yes, Candidate Hughes.
I would like to respond to that as well.
We'll keep you to like 30 seconds if that's okay.
We live in a neighborhood where we know all our neighbors, everybody knows us, and we believe we have a community. And in a community, people talk. We don't need a bunch of regulations about what you can or cannot do with trees. We understand what trees are, what they represent. We live in a forest. Our house backs onto a forest. We look after our trees. We want to make sure our trees aren't in the way of our neighbors, and we talk to our neighbors. And recently we had an event up on top of Islandview where somebody came in, wasn't anywhere near the neighborhood, and blocked a whole bunch of trees off village property, Ministry of Highways property, and private property. And it's still hanging out there.
Thank you, Candidate Hughes.
Thank you.
Please, Candidate Nelson. 30 seconds.
We actually have a tree bylaw for trees on municipal land. The spirit of the law is to protect people's views with trees on municipal land. We can't even enforce that bylaw, but I would like to see neighbours get together. We did have a bylaw for trees on private land. I would also see neighbours get together and do this. Unfortunately, that's not always practicable. I have personal experience with this, but what I'm seeing is that this council has not been willing to enforce even the existing bylaws. Clearly it needs attention.
Thank you, Candidate Nelson. Candidate Wilkie, 30 seconds.
I do not believe in topping trees. Our trees were topped and they're all dying. We have now found that topping trees is a horrible thing to do. I do believe in windowing trees, and I would really have to consider whether I would vote for enforcing that you have to chop your trees on your private property because I say so. So I'm sort of wavering on this, but I don't believe in chopping trees.
Thank you, Candidate McLaughlin, 30 seconds.
Thank you very much. Unfortunately, I'm the village liaison for the tree committee, and should I be elected to council, trust me, I will not ask for this assignment again. We have a very skilled volunteers tree committee, and as many people have said, we use our volunteers to the maximum, and we lean on your expertise. This is certainly the case in my view of the 3 years that we've gone to places where trees are on private property. That's the owner's issue, unfortunately for the neighbor. Where it's on public property, the rules are followed where possible.
Thank you, Candidate. Candidate Strong, 30 seconds.
As you can tell from my accent, I come from England. As you can tell from my accent, I come from England. In England, we have a common law, and it may be adopted by Canada. Canada has taken a lot of common law from England. And one of them is the right to light. You cannot grow trees and block off somebody else's light in England. It has to come down. You cannot block light. You can block view, but you cannot block light. And to the gentleman over here, does it apply to my land? If you've got a tree in your land, you don't want to cut it, mate, don't cut it. It's that simple. It's your tree. And that applies to everybody. As neighbours, I think we need to get together so we can cut trees. But agreeable to everybody.
That's strong. Yes, Candidate Dave, 30 seconds, please.
I like a more consensual perspective. How's that?
Yep.
I think when it comes to neighborhood trees and everything, the neighborhood should work together on it. And I think anything enforced on a neighborhood is not a good idea. As an example, we have trees in the back of our place. They're all being topped. They've been topped for years and years. We have a good neighbor behind who wants a good view, and he keeps all the trees down. Every couple of years he does it. We're happy with it. Our house is safe. In front of us, there's a stand of trees that's nice, and the owners over there like their trees. So we have a nice view to the south and to the north, and we're happy. Neighborhood consensus.
Thank you, Candidate Dave. Candidate Dino, 30 seconds. Go ahead.
I just want to reiterate that yes, all of this should be done on a neighbour-by-neighbour basis. A lot of people bought homes with fabulous views and have been in it a long time and have lost view. Loss of view equals loss of value equals loss of property taxes. There has to be a balance, though, between the view and the forest. I'm not a tree hugger, I'm not Chainsaw Jack. There is a happy medium that you can work with.
Thank you, David. We're ready for a new questioner. Louis Peterson.
Again.
Okay. David Shore. I get his name right when he passes.
David Shore?
Yes.
Thanks.
So I was going to ask a question about volunteerism to the new councillors, but I think there's a more direct question, and it's come up. About a third of the questions from the floor included a reference to the spirit of the village and some of the attacks that have been made. So I know that there is a group of councillors and one mayor. It's part of that group, and my question's to them. So if you'd put your hand up if you're, Jim, I think you mentioned before that you're one of the ones that said,
Are you talking about the group of seven, or the steward of prayer?
I haven't heard what they're called, but
David, 30 seconds, please, for the question.
well, I'm defining who the question is to.
Okay.
So first is Jim, Penny, I know that you're part of the group.
Who signed the flyers? We vote for flyers in 2 years? Yes. My name is on that flyer.
Okay. So this is a group that
We
has
have no
been
mayor,
involved with...
no mayor candidate with us, there's just a group of councillors.
So the question is...
What's the question?
Okay. The question is, the attacks that were made were not just on policy, they were on a personal level. And to me, my perception is they were extremely unprofessional. And my question to you is, how do you feel that we can vote for you to join council when you took such vicious attacks at the previous councils? And it's not just this year, it's the previous one to that as well.
Candidate Hughes.
I don't know what the attack was. Yeah, I'd like a reference. It was personal attack, but I don't remember leading a personal attack. None of us did. But what we were doing was we were reacting to a council and a government that was not listening to the residents. The residents were telling us, our neighbors were telling us there was a problem. We were asking about the problem. The community center was started it. It was the fact that the village was trying to borrow $700,000, and they were going to go ahead, they passed a motion to go ahead and borrow the money, and they hadn't talked to the villagers, and so we started talking to the villagers. And what happened was we got 285 signatures against that loan. And that's when that all started. We went back, and that's how we started with our flyers. And the flyers were, we were working with council trying to get some things. We had issues coming to us from our neighbors, and we were talking to our neighbors all the time in this process. They were asking us to talk to council when we did. We made presentations to council. A lot of times we got nowhere with them. It was getting really, really bad. And so we kept on doing it. And we have a right as taxpayers to ask questions of council. When council stonewalls us, we have a right to go back and ask why. And what we did is we kept on doing it. And that was it. But you know what? One thing I will say, you say, why should you vote for us on council? Let me tell you, last term, when I ran for mayor, I had no experience on council at all. Although I had experience on committees and stuff like that, talking to people, working with people.
Thank you, Candidate Hughes.
We have now gained some experience that's very valuable, and we've learned to work with council. And we're hoping, we decided we would run, some of us, to see if we could actually get elected on council, so we could actually work with the village.
Thank you, Candidate Hughes. Maybe somebody else wants to take it.
David, I would really, really like for somebody to actually tell us what this personal attack was.
How about the YouTube video?
Which one? Why is that an attack? If one is talking about transparency, the village has its own YouTube channel. Those are public meetings. Those are simply sections from public meetings. This is the culture I would like to see change in Lions Bay. You get the stuff going out there in the ether. Oh, there was a personal attack. If you're an elected official, you have to be able to answer the questions, especially when it's about tax dollars, especially when it involves things like conflicts of interest. In this council term, we have had 4 apparent conflicts of interest. 4. We have questioned those. The community charter is very specific about what councillors should do if they think they're in a conflict of interest. Not once was the ministry's guide for ethical conduct followed in this council term. Ironically, our first flyer in February said, pause. And in November, last year, that's what council did. They paused the CCR and took stock of the numbers.
Thank you, Councillor Nelson.
By that time, they wasted a further $65,000.
We're trying to hold the responses to 1 minute.
As I said before, I got involved with the finances after there was an article saying that council had not seen any financial statements. I went to the council and made a 2-minute submission. People approached me afterwards and they had a lot of concerns. There were a few of us got together and we put out a couple of flyers asking council to find out how much the CCR was going to cost before they borrowed the money. Just stop putting the cart before the horse. I have never made any objectionable comments. I remain totally professional. I haven't seen the YouTube, whatever it is on YouTube. I don't go on YouTube. I just don't deal with that sort of thing. I've been raised very English. You don't air your dirty laundry. I have nothing to do with any disparaging comments, but I've certainly been on the receiving end of them. And that was in lionsbay.net.
Thank you, Candidate Wilkie.